Hello friends, welcome to Java Swing tutorial. In this video we are going to look at JSlider. We will also see how to keep ticks and labels when we are creating the slider. Then we will learn how to process the event from JSlider component. So we will implement change listener and we will handle the change event. So as you see here in the left hand side picture, when user moves the knob in the center, it will produce a change event. From that change event, we can get the value from the slider. So the slider actually represents a range of values, and you can see here the range of values is set with 0 to 100. So this is the component name JSlider, and there are a variety of constructors. In this example, we are going to use the default constructor. That means without any parameters, we will construct the object. Then we can use different method on this JSlider to set the corresponding value ranges, then some display options. So in the previous picture, we saw that the slider is representing the value from 0 to 100. So we can represent this range of value 0 to 100 using two set of function. So the functions are set maximum and set minimum. So this will set the range of value for the slider. So in the screenshot, we saw that the tick values and the tick values are like this. So for example, if we are representing 0 to 100, so we can call this as major ticks. Then minor tick will be the smaller one, like this. So this major and minor ticks will give visual appearance to the user that where they are moving their thumb. So for example, now the thumb is here, then they are in between 25 and 50. And these minor ticks also help where exactly their thumb is. So we can specify these spacing using the set major tick spacing and set minor tick spacing. So these markings, this represents the tick, and the value here that represents the label. So we can make sure to enable this by making call to the set of functions. So these are the two set of functions. Set paint ticks, that sets the tick mark, or it asks the Java to draw the tick marks on the JSlider, and set paint labels. This will allow to draw the labels like 25, 50, 75 are seeing here. So these labels. So these labels are marked based on what are all the maximum and minimum value you are setting here. So for example, we are setting minimum as 0 and maximum as 100. So based on this minimum and maximum value and major tick spacing and minor tick spacing, Java will decide what label to paint. That means it actually paints the integer number, but what value is decided on these two parameters that we set to the JSlider component. So we can get where the slider thumb is based on the get value method. The get value tells where exactly the slider is. You can also use the set version of this function to move the slider to a specific location. Say for example, if I put set value of 50, then the thumb will move from some, let's say 30 to 50. So this thumb will be set here when we make a call to set value. I mean set value to 50. Alright, the slider will produce an event. This will produce a change event. So this event will be produced when the user moves the knob of the JSlider component. So when knob moves, that means the user is setting a new value just by moving the knob of the slider. So for each value change, we will get a change event. So this will be sent to a change listener. So when a change listener is registered to this, we will get this change event to that listener. So the actual method name here is the change listener will force you to implement state changed method, and this state changed method will receive this change event. So from this change event, you can get the source of the JSlider and you can query what is the value at present it is. Alright, now we will go to Eclipse Demo. First, let me open the Eclipse. So this will be our initial window, and we have a text field at class level, but it is not yet added to the frame window. So this is the initial appearance of our frame window. In each example, we will change this setBounds method to place a different location and size of the window. So for this example, we set the layout as a flow layout. So first we create a slider, and this slider is from javax.swing package. After that, if you see, we are setting the maximum and minimum value by making call to JSlider.setMaximum and set minimum. So the set minimum, we are setting it as 0, and maximum we are setting it as 100. So as you saw in the example screenshot, our slider is in the left hand side, the minimum value is 0 and maximum is 100. So let me comment this. So using the orientation, actually you can set how you want to display the slider. So for the set orientation, we are passing the constant from swing constants. Then we are stating we want the slider to be vertical. Then to control host, we are adding the slider as well as add. That means we already retrieved the content pan. So to the content pan, we are setting these two components. First, let us run this and see how it appears. Then we will change it to the horizontal alignment. So this will be our slider. User can move this thumb to set a value between the minimum and maximum. So the slider is to represent a range of value. here we specified the range of value is between 0 and 100. That means when the slider is here, it will be at 0, and when we move it here, it will be representing the value 100. It means maximum. This is minimum, and this will be 50. So let's remove this vertical alignment, and we will keep the horizontal alignment. So the orientation will change the appearance of the slider. So if you see here from our original example, it doesn't show any tick mark, it doesn't show any labels. So what we will do, we will set those properties. And if you see, we are setting our slider represents value between 0 and 100. That's the range of value. And we are setting major tick spacing as 20. That means there will be major marks of we are dividing this as 5 major part. That means each one will represent 20. Then minor tick spacing is 5. That means this 20 is divided into, so the minor tick spacing is 5. That means the 100 is divided by 20. Let's say that will be 5. So there will be 5 major tick mark, and if I divide this by 5, we will get 20 tick marks. So that's the minor spacing. Then after setting this major and minor tick spacing, we are asking to so this is for drawing purpose. We are informing the JSlider that we want to paint the ticks as well as the labels. So for now, let me disable the paint labels, or let's put paint labels as false. And if you see now, it will draw only the tick marks. And if you see, this one is the major tick mark, and minor is placed in between these major tick mark. Now let's enable the labels. And you can see the labels 20, 40, 60, 80 and 100. In between this 80 and 100, you will see a minor tick mark. So there are 4 divisions from 80. 1, 2, 3 and 4. So this 20 is divided to 4. That means each one is 5. So when user is moving the slider at this location, it is 25. And if they move the slider here, visually they can tell that they are at 25. So by default, the slider size is this much, and if you want to change the size, we can set the size of this slider using the set preferred size method. Let's do that. So if you see here, we are making use of the same slider object. Then we are setting the preferred size for this slider. So we are passing the dimension object. So this is from AWT. And we are setting the width as 300 and height as 50. Now if I run it, you can see that the label is moved from the right position to bottom, because the layout is a flow layout and the slider is occupying some more position. Now it's in the middle, that means at 50. The slider value is 50 now. Alright, so when user moves this slider, it will produce the change event. Now we will handle this change event and we will update this text box with the current value represented by the slider. We know that slider will produce. We know that the slider will produce a change event. Now using that, we will handle the slider's value when user adjusts the knob of the slider. So as already told, the listener is the change listener. So we are making call to add change listener. Then to use the anonymous inner class to handle that, we are using the new keyword. After placing the space bar, I'm hitting the control space. So here Eclipse will provide an option, anonymous inner type for change listener. If I double click, we will get the handler. So it automatically overrides the required handler method. So the handler method name is state changed. So inside this state changed, we will handle the event. So here our goal is to take the value from the slider and update the text box. So text box we already kept at class level, so we can make use of the reference TF and we can update the value. So the state changed method is receiving the change event. So we already implemented the change listener, and for this state changed, first we are getting the source from the change event. e.getSource will retrieve the slider object that is producing the event. Here it is slider. So since we are already doing the anonymous handling this in anonymous inner class, we no need to use this e.getSource. We can directly make use of the slider. So that's the beauty of this anonymous inner class. So since this is an anonymous inner class, we no need to use the e.getSource because we know who's the event producer. So the slider object and it's the anonymous inner class. We can directly make use of the slider. Alright, so now we have slider instance. Then we make use of slider.getValue. So this will return the current value in the slider, and we can make use of a setText method to set the value of the slider. Now let me run this once. So you can see how it is producing the event. When slider is at 20, you can see that value here in the text box. So the minor spacing correctly divides. So now it's at 45. So that means each space is 5. If you see here, each space is 5 for minor tick. So that's what you are seeing here, and major is 20. So major is 20, that you can see through the label itself. This is 60, and when increment it by 20, we will get 80. In between, since we set minor spacing as 5, you can see 60 to 65, then 65 to 70, like this. Alright, now as already told, since it's an anonymous type, we don't need this line at all. So we are implementing this listener specifically to this slider instance. So we can directly make use of that slider instance. So this anonymous inner class will have access to this slider. And this inner class is specific to this slider, so we can directly use this. Now let me run this once again, and you can see the slider is working. So we can do this with a scroll bar also, but some people like the visual appearance of the slider to represent a range of values. Say for example, you can use the RGB color by representing the 3 slider, one for R, one for G, and one for B, red, green, blue. In that case, you have to set minimum and maximum value as 0 and 255. Similarly, you can use the slider control to adjust the volume of the media player. So you can think of a mini situation in which you need a slider control. I just gave 2 examples for you. One is to represent RGB and another one is to represent the volume of the sound player. That's all here in this video. Thank you for watching.